The Toronto Raptors could be making a huge trade this summer. The Portland Trail Blazers are reportedly shopping the 3rd overall pick, so in today's video we break down what the Raptors would have to trade to get that pick and if it would be worth it for Toronto's future. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? This is Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content in videos, live streams, and shorts. If you want to see more content like this all throughout the offseason, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you can help me on my road to 15,000 subscribers. The NBA draft lottery is firmly in the books now. We had a little bit of a first reaction to the situation for the Raptors ending up with the 13th overall pick in yesterday's video. And over the course of that video, I hinted a couple of times that the Raptors could be lurking around that 3rd overall pick from the Portland Trail Blazers. Damian Lillard has made it clear that he does not want to be working with a developmental project. Damian Lillard wants to win now, and for the better or for the worse of that organization, it seems as though they want to meet those demands and still try this thing around Damian Lillard. Now, I love Damian Lillard as a player, but the situation in Portland, it just doesn't seem like it's ever going to breed a contending team at this point. I don't know if this trade is going to change that, but Portland, their way of thinking here is that Damian Lillard is the best player, one of the best players, at least in the history of the franchise. You want to maximize his tenure there for as long as possible, especially within a smaller market as such. So the 3rd overall pick is becoming increasingly available, and from yesterday, me just hinting at it, since then, we've had so many different reports suggesting that, yes, Portland are in serious talks to move that pick, and perhaps the Toronto Raptors are in the best position to make that trade happen. The Portland Trail Blazers out of this situation will no doubt be looking for a co-star to put beside Damian Lillard, and also they want to put a little bit of an eye on somebody that's going to complement Dame. Last season, ahead of the draft, the Portland Trail Blazers were shopping the 7th overall pick, and one of the players specifically they were looking at acquiring was OG Anunoby. And we've talked on this channel so many times extensively about how OG Anunoby fits in with so many different teams, and it's just such a great complementary piece that trade would have been great for them, just didn't really make sense for us to shop OG Anunoby at the time. But now the Raptors, we're not coming off of a 48-win season. We're not coming off of a 5th seed. We're coming off of a 9-seed season where we completely missed out on the playoffs and lost in the first round of the play-in tournament. We're in a little bit of a mediocre spot here, stuck in the middle of nothing on the season. All in on nothing, it seems. And it feels as though without a first-round pick for next season, we're a little bit set for another mediocre season. So this trade could be the exact reset we are looking for. And Portland will likely be looking for a bit of an upgrade on OG Anunoby, and all of a sudden, Pascal Siakam could be on the table to go to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for that 3rd overall pick. Thinking about this one from Portland's perspective, Pascal Siakam would be a great complementary piece to Damian Lillard. Long have we thought now that Siakam, his best role is definitely as the co-star, and just think about the spacing Damian Lillard would provide and how good Pascal Siakam could play in that system with that additional spacing. The Raptors have lacked so much spacing in the last couple of seasons, and Siakam has still put on an all-NBA caliber season and an all-star caliber season. So just imagine with that additional spacing, perhaps what Pascal Siakam could do. And also the two-way game that he possesses can really make up for some of the defensive deficiencies within that team. The fit of Siakam with that team in Portland makes a ton of sense. Putting Siakam by Damian Lillard, that makes a ton of sense. But is it going to make sense from a Raptors perspective? Well, a lot of that depends on exactly what the price is going to be. Pascal Siakam for the 3rd overall pick, would that make sense from a Portland Trail Blazers perspective? In the hypothetical situation where you don't have to worry about salaries, does that make sense from a straight-up trade for Portland? I think 100% it does. You'd be more than happy at this point to get a Pascal Siakam quality player, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA player out of a 3rd overall pick. But that's a little bit too much for the Raptors to give up just that 3rd overall pick. And it's not exactly a shoo-in you're going to get a bona fide star out of that selection. That selection could be Brandon Miller, which changes my opinion of this situation a lot. But Charlotte, with the 2nd overall pick, may not want to get in another guard beside LaMelo Ball and could look Brandon Miller's way. And all of a sudden, Scoot Henderson becomes available at the number 3 spot. I think if Scoot Henderson, if you're feeling around and you feel as though Scoot Henderson is going to be the player available at number 3, then trading Siakam for the third overall pick is almost a no-brainer situation for the Raptors. You can now focus on putting OG and Scotty as your starting forwards. You can put in Jakob Poeltl as a starting center as long as he re-signs, which I expect him to do. All of a sudden, you're building around Scoot Henderson as one of your guards, and potentially your 13th overall pick can be another guard to round off your starting five. That thing looks a whole lot better than what we had this season, and it looks a whole lot better in terms of promise for the future. But again, it can't just be Siakam for that third overall pick. Portland, I feel like I'm trying to get a gauge exactly of what Portland make of this whole situation. To me, Siakam for the third overall pick, straight up, hypothetical, no salaries, is an overpay by the Raptors. So what do Portland need to add in here to make this trade a little bit more suitable for the Raptors to take on? I've seen a lot of Raptors fans online talking about potentially a third overall pick plus Sharp plus Simons trade in order to get Pascal Siakam. I feel like that's really a lot. I understand how good Pascal Siakam is. You know, we're seeing stars going for 3 first-round picks like we've seen in the past couple of seasons. I think Siakam is pretty close to that valuation. The third overall pick is obviously worth a lot more than, 3 picks that are going to be like 20 or later. So I think that if you're going for the third overall pick, there should be no issues in also being able to acquire a good player on the side, like potentially an Anthony Simons. I think Shaedon Sharpe might be a little bit too much of an ask there. Hey, you want to go ahead and ask, go ahead. But Anthony Simons, along with a complementary piece like potentially Nasir Little, who I have pretty good expectations about his future, didn't quite reach the levels I thought he would last season, but I still think there is some potential there that the Toronto Raptors could definitely work with. So some sort of trade package centered around the third overall pick, Anthony Simons, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but he's a talented player, young player, locked in on a contract here. I think that's a decent value to get there, and Nasir Little. I think that this trade makes a great degree of sense for Portland from their perspective. I think this trade makes a ton of sense from a Raptors perspective. This season, what we have upcoming, it really feels as though it's a bit of a nothing season here. We don't have our first round pick for next season. So there's no point in focusing on the draft. There's no point in tanking or anything of that nature because you don't have your pick. So you may as well try to win games. But we saw what this core was this most recent season, and I don't think a new coach is going to change things drastically. The biggest changes need to come for the bench with the depth of this team, but it's going to be incredibly difficult to find that depth given the lack of cap flexibility and the lack of overall assets that we can trade. So maybe we bring in a guy on a mid-level exception to fill out the depth a little bit more, but I don't think that's going to move the needle tremendously. So I see the Raptors being in a little bit of a dogfight to get into the playoffs once again. Pretty mediocre. Not exactly what Raptors fans want to see. But we can accept a little bit more of that mediocrity if we're prioritizing development. We're working on the development of OG Anunoby. Maybe we give him some more touches as an offensive player now. Scotty Barnes gets way more touches as an offensive player and has more space for himself to operate in scoring at the rim. We'll have to replace a lot of scoring with Siakam, but maybe Scotty Barnes can start the process of filling that void a little bit. And all of a sudden now, you have the third overall pick. Is it Brandon Miller? Hopefully it's Scoot Henderson, whatever that may be in that situation. If it's Scoot, oh my goodness. That's your starting point guard likely you're hoping for the next 8, 9, 10 years. If it's Brandon Miller, then you work out a way. You slide OG Anunoby up to the 2, maybe Scotty Barnes up to the 3. Brandon Miller slots in as one of your forwards as well. That is something that is completely acceptable as well. I don't really know why I overcomplicate things here. Brandon Miller is certainly an option you probably should go with, but it's also very reasonable to go with Asar or Amen Thompson in this spot and put them at the 2. That also makes a lot of sense to pair with Scoot Henderson. And then you still have that 13th overall pick to fill it out once again. You can find a guard like Cason Wallace. Maybe you bring in Keontae George, another shooting guard to this team. Maybe he's coming off the bench. Maybe in that situation, you bring back Fred VanVleet as a guard. There are so many options of how you can tinker your team, but you're starting the process. You're getting the ball rolling on bringing in depth to this team and developmental pieces to this team. So we see the vision going forward because right now, Raptors fans, we're looking at this team like, where is this going? There's no direction. And I think a lot of head coaches around the league are looking at this team like there's not a lot of direction here. Not a very desirable spot to land as a destination for a head coach. So trying to attract a guy like Monty Williams, well, if I'm Monty Williams, I'd rather go to Philadelphia or Milwaukee and bring my head coaching talents over there. So Toronto need to start to find a way to get this team in a certain direction. And maximizing wins for the season with that young team would be exciting, because these young players are coming into a team where, a lot of times young stars are entering the league with teams that, they're only going to win like less than 30 games. But here, you're going to have the full reins to just go out and win as many games as possible. There's no threat of tanking. There's no threat of focusing on the draft. It's all about getting wins. And from a developmental standpoint, thinking about it from a team standpoint, franchise standpoint, not ideal. But from a player standpoint, from a team standpoint on the court, having the full backing of the organization to go and win games, playing with that freedom, I think is just going to heighten the amount of development that we can get out of these players. So as far as the trade goes, it's a non-zero chance that the Raptors end up with Scoot Henderson out of the 2023 NBA draft. It's not like 50, it's probably not even 25%, but it's considerably above non-zero that Portland want to shop that third pick. They want Pascal Siakam, and Charlotte don't take Scoot because they want to pair Brandon Miller with LaMelo Ball. That is a very realistic reality that could go on this summer, which would be enormous, humongous for the Raptors to be able to achieve, and it would just completely give me a sense of a 180 on where I think this franchise is heading, and that would be extremely exciting. But is that enough? Is Siakam plus other things enough to make this happen? Is it possible to get this trade to happen, Siakam to the Trailblazers for that third pick, without actually giving them the 13th pick in the process? I'm not interested if it's Siakam plus the 13. I'm only interested if it's Siakam, but Portland may want more draft capital as well coming their way, but we just don't have that available. We don't have first-round picks to trade until 2028, but I don't want to commit that much into the future on this team right now. I don't want to do all of that. So I don't want to force a trade here, but if there's a solid valuation here and Portland really think that Siakam is the right fit next to Damian Lillard, this trade can happen. And all of a sudden, in the span of like 48 hours, my hopes for the offseason have incredibly increased. That could be a mistake from myself thinking like that, but allow a man to dream. What do you guys make of this situation? What do you think the Raptors should be giving up in order to get that third overall pick? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more Raptors content here on YouTube. I'll be streaming for members tomorrow, a call-in stream on Friday. I'll be doing a video Saturday morning and a stream for everybody Sunday night. Tons of content coming your way. Get involved. Join the Amateur Hour Army today.